Hey guys, this is Miss Jacobson. Today we're going to keep working with plot, just like we were doing with the Gigantos story on Tuesday, but we're going to be doing it more from the perspective of a writer than as a reader. So far we've mainly talked about plot as a reader, and today we're going to think about it in terms of our writing. So our lesson goals are still, I will be able to identify the essential parts of a plot and graph them on a plot map. And I will be able to explain the difference between an internal and external story arc. So now it's time to write, which means you have a decision to make. Look over all the memories that you've listed either on your first-last chart, your SCARS map, or your memory map. You have 1 minute, although you can pause the video if you need longer, 1 minute to decide which of those memories you would most like to turn into a story. So you're going to look at all three pre-writings we did last week and decide this is the story that I could come up with, I could fill in a plot map for and turn it into a story, a personal narrative with a beginning, middle, and an end. Pause the video if you need time to think. Unpause it when you're ready. So today we're going to make a story mountain with your story. Your story mountain should have the external story, so the literal actual events of what happened in your personal narrative, and your internal story, which is your reactions, how you felt about each step of that plot map, how you felt at each moment in the story, how you reacted to things, how your thoughts or feelings changed, what you learned. You're going to add details in order to get your meaning across. So if you have your first event is that you learned you'd failed your math test, whatever. Your internal arc is going to help you add detail to that because it's going to show us here was my reaction and here's why it was important. Like here's the consequence, here's the result. Kind of it adds more meaning to that moment. Again, you're going to use a story from either your SCARS map, your place map, your memory map, or your first-last chart. You're going to have an external story arc, so just what happened, the general story, and an internal story arc, the emotions of the story, and they're both going to be on the same page. The external story arc starts with how it started, so that's your exposition on your story map. Then you have the next three things that happened, that's your rising action. The big moment, that's your climax. What happened next, that's your falling action. What happened after that, that's your falling action. And how it ended, that's your resolution. Just like any story we read in class, you should be able to come up with these events for the story that you're going to write. And we're filling in the events before we write the story so that once we go to actually write our rough draft, there's no confusion. We know exactly where we're going because we've already plotted out our story. The internal story arc is a little bit trickier because instead of being like really clear defined parts, it's your reaction to what's going on and the emotions or the feelings of you or the other characters at that moment in the story. What you felt, what you thought, how you reacted at each moment in the story. And it shouldn't be something simple like, I felt sad. You should tell me what was the depth of the emotion. I felt devastated, or I was a little bit annoyed, but it wasn't that bad. Why did that matter? Like, how did that affect you? How did that change your reactions? So what you're going to do is you are going to fill in the story arc in your OneNote. Once you have filled in both an external and an internal story arc with all the events for your personal narrative, then with any leftover time, you're going to start writing a rough draft that has all of those parts from your story map.